You have 2 minutes remaining, and I'd like you to look over your list and star 3 items you want to share first in the small groups. And maybe figure out the key words to use to share it. All right, now take that piece of paper and set it aside and pull out your chart and notes on the conclusion. We're going to spend the next few minutes quickly walking through the conclusion. And I'm going to share, how's this going to work? And Judy's going to lead that part. And I'm going to share my screen to take notes. Judy, unmute yourself and go ahead.
So can everybody see the chart? Is everybody unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what we want to do is just get out his key insights, and we'll go by sections of the chart. So you can see it says 1, 2, 3 there. That would be the first 3 paragraphs. So just asking everybody to share what you came up with. We'll start with the first 3 paragraphs then. The question of human agency is the title that I gave to this section, but what did Fareed have to say about that?
You have more leeway now.
We learn to isolate.
We can choose the future.
Okay.
We learned about essential workers.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a change in attitude.
What was the change in attitude?
Well, that we have people are essential, workers are essential. They're pointing to our change in attitude towards something.
Okay.
Policies that were seen as frozen became fluid, like working from home, taking courses on Zoom, etc.
Zoom was essential.
Any last additions?
Making changes that we've wanted to make for a long while is easier now.
Uh-huh. And why does he say it's easier?
It's easier because the COVID forced us to make changes in a quick way to accommodate to it.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to paragraphs 4 to 5, in which he says, basically, I think at the end of paragraph 3, that we're at a crossroads. And then he talks about some historical examples of that and what the result was. Does someone have notes on the situation with Wilson at the end of World War I?
Yeah, the US rejected the League of Nations.
Okay.
And took us into a dark world.
Yeah.
All right. And Stalin? What was his example there? What decisions did Stalin make?
Refuse the Marshall Plan.
All right.
And
And,
all of these were to say that we have many futures. These are examples of different kinds of futures, but we have many.
okay,
And the decisions that the leaders made the difference. We would have had a different world if they'd made different decisions.
okay. All right, we're going to go on to paragraph 6 and 7, which he says we must choose. What are his points there? He talks about trends pushing forward.
Our economy is creating ever greater climate risks.
Okay. What else?
We have a decision to make between slow growth or charging ahead, like we usually do, not knowing what we're doing.
But the problem is the political will to implement solutions. It's not that we don't have solutions.
Right.
Political will is the problem.
That's right.
Okay.
He talked about massive investments needed. Relative
he
to
says that-
carbon.
He says that countries can change as well as individuals. What example did he use there? Does anybody have notes on that?
He talked about up until let's see, the end of World War II, basically, nations did not see that their governments were responsible for the general welfare or the common good, the general welfare of their people. But by 1950, virtually all major nations had changed to see their government as needing to respond to the general welfare.
Okay.
Surprising.
And in paragraph 9, he gives let's see, wait, no, I'm jumping ahead here.
8 and 9.
6 and 7. All right, we'll move on to 8 and 9. Countries can change. He gives an example of the European Union and FDR. What were those saying?
Well, I wrote down two phrases for each of those chapters. For FDR, I wrote steam ahead. And for the European Union, I wrote wise leadership.
Uh-huh.
Pulled out from his text.
Okay.
Wasn't European leaders, they can work together, something like that, as opposed to against each other?
Yeah, and he talked about our present moment with COVID. What did he say happened there over the course of the first year of the pandemic in Europe?
First, they closed down borders and fought for supplies and everything. And then they discovered that they really needed to work together. They were stronger. They
Okay,
worked together.
all right. Let's move on to paragraphs 10 to 11. We need more global governance. Why?
And I think by global governance, he's talking about not more government,
Right.
but more cooperation
Governments.
between governments.
And
I think
and
he,
enlightened leaders.
I think he implied that, the challenge is collective leadership. He called it collective decision-making. That's a huge challenge.
To work
And I
together.
think
to
he
solve
recognizes.
problems.
Yeah, no single country, he says, can organize the entire world anymore.
Yeah.
I wrote down WHO has to be strengthened, even though it had some problems.
Mhm.
And it-
And I would add to that, other international conglomerates, coalitions, or whatever, collaborations.
Okay. All right, the last section, paragraphs 12 through 16, men make history, and he gives a number of examples there. So anybody want to talk about Marx or Bismarck in paragraph 12?
I really like the image of trying to discern the footsteps of God.
Following and grab the,
Grab the coattails
tails.
Yeah.
as it goes by.
As he marches past.
Uh-huh.
I wrote down, no more messiahs.
Uh-huh.
What about Joe Biden?
Exactly.
I think we're already clear that
And I am it.
have a Messiah there.
Well, and there was the decision to go after smallpox. Even
Right.
though it took a while
Yes.
to decide to do it. But
Mhm.
Yeah, the first Russian representative to the WHO.
Yeah.
in Minneapolis,
Yeah.
And
Right.
what was the decision that he made?
well, he thought they should go after trying to eradicate smallpox, and he referred to Jefferson, who was talking about Jenner, and like, this has been going on since here
Jefferson.
the US was formed, so
Mhm.
maybe we should do something about it. You should do something about it, you US people.
So part of what's not written is how women make their own history.
Huh.
Hmm.
Hmm.
All right.
some more.
In at paragraph 15, he comes back to the Lawrence of Arabia story that he started out at the beginning of the chapter with. What is that story and what did he add here at the end?
The guy he saved, the guy Lawrence saved in the desert turned out to be a murderer, and he had to shoot him. Wow.
Yeah, he said by his actions, he threw away his chance for a different future. So he's really saying our actions really make a difference.
Uh-huh.
I think I read that he saved the guy, and yet he volunteered to execute the justice so that he was an outsider, neutral, and yet discovering that the guy he saved is the murderer, and still he has to execute it. So the question is, was it worth saving? And yet at the end, you still have to execute. That to me was a very powerful imagery, where oftentimes we are caught in a dilemma. Politicians make decisions. Should we or shouldn't we? Should we open the economy? Should we open schools? And yet we're still dealing with the pandemic.
We need
This
to
is this is a side comment, but I brought to mind all those people in 1984, 1985, 1986 who were involved on our behalf of calling that great structure out of being, many of whom had formed it.
Any of whom had what?
So
Maybe.
at
Well,
every
it's
point, he seems to be saying at every point we make decisions, that we have agency. But we can't afford to throw our chances away.
Well, I think the other thing with the Lawrence of Arabia is the guy he saved then made a decision himself that then required that Lawrence of Arabia had to shoot him since he decided to murder somebody.
Yep.
So he kind of honored the guy's decision to be a murderer by going ahead and executing him.
For me, it's understanding the tension between it is written, it is not written.
Yeah.
And that,
Say something about that.
Tug of war.
Going along with that, I was taken by Karl Marx's comment on page 240 about men make their own history, but they don't just make it from what they want to do. They make it from what they inherit from the past, what's given to them. How creative can they get with what they have on the plate that, like I'm thinking the border situation right now that Biden has inherited. Yeah.
I thought that was so powerful that, for me, that Cronkite interview with Eisenhower at the very end, and where he said, the soldiers who died in World War II gave us all a chance to build a better and more peaceful world. Holy cow, that was powerful for me. We talk about that as the saints who went before us. We stand on their shoulders. But that was just a powerful way to say that for me. I mean, oh.
So anybody, what would you say are the ideas from this chapter that most capture the essence of what Fareed is, what his message is? What are the key points of the ones we listed that you think are most important?
I'd say a couple of things before we go into that. I remember Dwight Eisenhower also said, if you want to be a leader, you figure out where the people are going and then get out in front of them. And it's not the exact quote, but that's very similar to what Bismarck said. Two completely different kind of visions. Now, in the Lawrence of Arabia thing, when he first met the character played by Omar Sharif, who was a leader of a certain ethnic group, Sharif killed the guy that was approaching them because the guy was from a different ethnic group that was not supposed to be at that well. And this happened to be the guy who was trying to pull out a pistol that that Lawrence had given him the night before. So these are two events at the beginning of the movie and then towards the middle of it that are very similar. What Lawrence had to do was, what he was trying to do was unite all the Arabs.
Yeah.
And what he had to do was show, well, in this first instance, he argued with Sharif afterwards, why'd you kill that guy and stuff, And then at the end, he goes and saves this guy. He doesn't ask which ethnic group he's from or anything else. He's missing. He goes after him. This is going to, if anybody's watching, it's going to tell every Arab there that they're important, no matter what. And then, of course, the irony comes, and now he's the one that's got to uphold this honor-based justice thing. It's like a eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth stuff, and has to execute to do that. And that also cements his leadership. He says, this is what's in, I'm your leader. So it's what this says, all of these actions.
Great, thank you. Makes you want to go back and look at that movie again.
Yeah.
It also says that we can only make decisions, and we have to make decisions with what information we have, whether it is from our past or within what it is that's in front of us, our values that have been guiding us. We cannot predict the outcome of this thing, of our decisions, but we make decisions, and like we said, we will make mistakes. It is not, we cannot make the right decision that will not have any mistakes.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, very much. We're now going back to Jim, who is going to lay out the small team assignments. So you'll be taking your list that you made earlier, and that's what we'll be working with in the small groups.
Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Judy.
Take
Thank
the
you,
book,
Judy.
take Fareed's book for the moment and put it aside. Now
Done.
we're going to focus on our own wisdom. We're going to divide into small breakout groups, 5 small breakout groups. And I'll put the instructions and a link into the chat. At least I thought, and I believe I've got the 5 people who
You're
volunteered.
breaking.
5 people have volunteered to use the Google Doc. What you will do in your small group is appoint a note-taker reporter, which could be the person who volunteered to use the Google Doc. And he or she will open the link in the chat to the Google Doc to take notes. I believe I've set it up so they could share the screen like I just did, and you all could see what's being entered in. Each person will read out their 3 starred learnings, then any questions of clarity, talk about them as a group a little bit, and then compile a list of 5 to 7 that hold your group's wisdom. You'll have 20 minutes for this. And I hope it's going to work.
Leap of faith.
We need the political will.
It
folks.
will work. We
It
just
will
have
work.
to learn what, we
Will
just have to
work.
learn what working means.
Off you go.
Oh, boy.
Oh, okay. I'm going to room 2.
Now, is this us? 1, 2,
No,
3,
this
4,
is the
5.
people- This is the people who haven't got into rooms.
Oh,
Tom, can you get yourself?
I hear you, but I don't know what to do next if I need to go to a room. Usually I'm assigned.
All right, I'm assigning you to room 1,
Very good. Thank you.
but you'll still have to click something that says join. Paul, I'm going to assign you to room 5.
okay.
You'll still have to click to join, buddy. David, I think we should go to rooms. You want to pick a room, buddy? Room 5 is the thinnest.
Share your 3 points. There's Jim.
All
Hi,
right,
Jim.
y'all set and moving?
We're good and moving.
All right.
Who would like to be first? Share your 3 points.
Christian Zoroastrians, Baha'i. Anyway, those are just in this starting group. And we are coming together and figuring out how to do a survey and also create a toolkit for to pass on to, to help the faith communities.
Y'all are doing good, right?
Doing good.
All right.
Someone
And-
else
and-
do three.
Are y'all good?
We're just trying to type into chat. We're hoping, because it says our breakout room, maybe it's just gonna be for us when it says everyone.
You should be able to type straight on the Google Doc.
We haven't found it.
But Karen opened a new,
All right, I'll re-give it to you just a second. All right, follow that. It should work. I'll come back and check in a second.
all right, Karen, can you pick it up?
Where am I finding it? In chat or where?
It's in the chat. It's in the chat now. You just put it in the chat.
And what group are we?
We're
Well,
three.
it says, now it says 7. Oh, no, yeah.
Wait,
think
I
we're
was
up
sent
the
to room
top.
3.
We're
but,
room
Me
three.
too, but at the top with the list, it says
Oh.
7.
Okay, I've got the Google Doc.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and
Global travel has been limited or postponed.
But political will and leadership is a critical dimension of the new. If our governments, we still need the structures of our government, the political dynamic, not the politics of it, but the order, justice, and common will are so critical right now. And people do not only think
Can you put me back in my room, room 3? I hit the button and it took me here.
I don't think I can. Did you get that email from Tracy about Dawn?
No.
No. She's worried that Dawn's not taking her meds. And
Oh, that's,
and-
Linda called me today about something she was worried about relative to Dawn.
anyway, I'll resend the email. Tracy's working on it.
Yeah, send it
Also-
to,
also
send it to
Tracy-
Linda.
Also, Tracy has a daughter that's over 40.
So Tracy is Dawn's daughter?
Yes,
Who's Tracy? Okay.
Tracy. Tracy Hampton was her name back in the day.
Yeah, but she has another daughter, right?
She has Kyra and Adam.
Yeah, right.
So 3.
Okay, but I just don't know Tracy as well. Anyways, if you would forward that to Linda and I, that we would appreciate it.
Okay.
So Joyce, you're here too, by mistake. You're on mute.
I'm just here for a couple more minutes. I'm going to listen in a little, but I need to bug out by about 5 after 8. So anyway, yeah, no, my daughter
What
called
could
me and I called
possibly
her.
be more important than this?
My daughter's giving a talk tomorrow and she's wanting to quote me on some stuff. I don't know.
EQ.
By the way, Jim,
Yes.
Louis and I would like to suggest if you are going to do another study down the road, this would be our suggestion. Bill Gates' new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. Very, very readable. The guy is so brilliant, it's ridiculous. He's so well researched. And I think it would be a great study. So just one input there. It just came out.
Any other commercials while we're gathering?
I said we should do the twin books. Megan, his wife, Moment of Lift. We should do them complementing with each other so you can see how a couple
Yeah,
came to
I read that
realize.
book. I read that.
Yep.
I found it in a bookstore in Accra in Ghana, and I read it on the plane coming home. And that's a great book too, really.
Welcome
Wonder
back,
what book was that?
everybody.
Okay, what is the great book that you read on the way back from Accra?
Oh, it's Melinda Gates' book called The Moment of Lift.
Okay.
Yeah.
They found out what we knew all along in Fifth City.
Can you put that?
But it took them a long time to figure it out.
You put that in the
But they
chat?
both came to do that.
Um,
Hey, Shanklin joined us, huh?
If Joyce could put that book in the chat, that would be great.
Another one is Surviving the Future by David Fleming. Culture, Carnival, and Capital in the Aftermath of a Market Economy. And he was related to the transitions community, transitions towns, transitions communities.
All right, I'm going to move us on to our reports. Again, we're asking Judy and Larry to listen carefully to all the team reports and then go aside and create one list of key learnings for our whole group. And right now what we're going to do is, and Judy and Larry, I've set up, I don't know how to do this. I think I set up 2 breakout rooms so you can go off on the side and do that, but I'm uncertain when to click that. So we're going to do we're going to have room reports, and if each room took 3 minutes, the reporter to report their key insights. Do you want to? We were thinking to just do that orally, but if you want, I could do share screen so we could follow along visually. So let's start with room 1.
Did you scroll through it while we were meeting or did it scroll?
I was in room 1 and I was taking notes, so I think my team thinks I'm going to say something. So
Always.
need world governance, but not necessarily government. Discern and work with the Spirit of God and the mystery as it is moving today. The crisis is in fragmentation within and across Western democracies.
Good.
And the ripple effect of that on how our roles, ourselves, our nations are perceived. The digital programs, more people can participate beyond space and time. And the final one was about discourse and deliberation as the key, which somebody added to our list, ICA practices. And so that stimulated us to think, wow, we like their idea. So I'm not sure which team that was, but thank you. We are complete.
Any quick questions to that? Well, let's hear team 2. Room 2.
That's John Cock.
Unmute.
You're ready. Jim, how many answers do we get?
We'll know in a minute. Go ahead.
Collaboration, increased collaboration was a big one. Our decisions need to be based on Earth's needs. That there needs to be local movements down to the micro level, but also international collaboration. And then we need to think about folks who don't have the interior resources or the political resources or the digital resources, but also knowing that there are, despite sort of the digital and economic and resource divides, there are still people that are able to participate globally. And we need to think about opportunities and, which technologies do we harness for global good? How's that sound, team?
Yeah.
Team 3. Room 3.
Karen, you got the Google document.
These are the ones we got, somebody highlighted. I got cut off, so I didn't know what. Artificial intelligence is a foundation for our global future and will be impacted. We have choices between the Cold War chaos or cooperation. And looking at what ICA best practices are for the post-pandemic world, like this kind of a study is a demonstration for book clubs relative to how to honor the author and each other and use reflective practices. And so also we said have supporters of the facilitators that make each event come off well. That's the ones that are in yellow.
Thank you. Room 4.
I don't know where room 4 is.
Yeah, it's a, let me.
Okay, I'll let you. I didn't know what you were doing.
Group 4.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can
Yes.
hear you.
Now I'm trying to get back to the documents.
Right.
And I've got to scroll up. Can I say I hate Google Documents? Is that permitted?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Is that one of your 5 to 7 key points?
No.
All right, all right.
I'm scrolling up. Okay, here we go. All right, here's our top 5. We need universal health care. Second, in view of increasing inequality, we need to empower the poor and essential workers, including ethnic minorities, LGBTQ, etc. We need to revitalize local agriculture. We need to revise stockpiling of our supplies so that was about that stockpiling for the future, I think. And we need leadership that encourages participation and methods for working together in collaboration. That was it.
5.
Doug needs to unmute.
There, now I'm sorry. First of all, we learned to unmute.
Is that one of your 5 to 7 key?
That's one of our 5, always unmute, and otherwise stay muted. The pandemic has given us a chance to create a different world, not just new improvement, but a new mode of change. Solitude is hard to find, and actually we've been, or maybe it was not hard to find. I can't remember. Unity is not simple unless there is collective decision making. So political will and leadership is a critical dimension of the new. We've been through digital kindergarten now. Some practices will actually become permanent. Everything we learned in kindergarten. The victim image is still there, but now loneliness and being alone, but without sharing is a problem. And we're doing more work at home. And the local and family is primary again. We've been thrown over on our reliance on the local and on family. And part of what went with the victim image is the cultural and religious revolution was right, and we're seeing that played out every day.
Any questions of clarity to any of the teams? Judy or Larry, do you have any questions of clarity you want to ask before you go aside and pull this together?
Oh, they were just.
I'd like to ask what you meant by the cultural and religious revolution was right. Say more about that.
Is that us?
Well, that was mine. And all I was thinking is that when, like the whole thing about the victim image, you know, every time some politician opens their mouth, it's about how we've been victimized. I'm a victim of this, I'm a victim of that. And, you know, our insight into the underlying fundamental spirit issue in community is what needs to be transformed. And it seems to me that the fundamental insight of RS1 and the religious revolution in the 20th century is still is what we're seeing in the transformation of society today. Same thing with the Cultural Revolution, scientific, urban, and secular. That those revolutions are accelerated and exposed by the pandemic.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna send, well, Larry and Judy,
Yes, Jim,
it's time for you to go off and make sense of all this.
of course.
They were a team for the first lens courses in Mauritius.
This
And
is
they
true.
apparently got good reports. So
It was
I
true.
thought this would be a good group. Now, I don't know how.
Once every 45 years, whether we need to or not.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I have set up 2 breakout rooms, and I'm going to open them, and you get to pick which room. So I suggest Judy and Larry, you pick one, and the rest of you don't pick anyone, but stay here, and we'll reflect a bit together, okay?
Say that one more time.
I'm going to open a breakout room, and Larry and Judy are going to go aside and come up with a common list of from all that we've generated, while the rest of us go on and talk about other things. Okay, so
And we
when
have
I
to
open
choose-
the breakout rooms, Larry and Judy go to breakout room 1, and the rest of you just stay here.
Okay.
I hope. All right, here you go.
All right, there we go.
And I'm going to share my screen for just a second and play a song for you.
Play a song. Oh, boy.
I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am a scholarship to King's College. I probably should brag, I amaze and astonish. The problem is not a lot of brains, but no polish. I gotta holler just to be heard with every word. I drop knowledge. I'm a diamond in the rough. A shining piece of coal, trying to reach my goal. My style of speech, unimpeachable. Only 19, but my mind is older. These New York City streets get cold. I shoulder every burden, every disadvantage. I've learned to manage. I don't have a gun to brandish. I walk these streets famished. The plan is to fan this, walk into a flame. But damn, it's getting dark, so let me spell out the name. I am the A-N-D-S-A-N-D-E-R. We are meant to be a colony that runs independently. Meanwhile, Britain keeps shitting on us endlessly. Essentially, they tax us relentlessly. Then King George turns around, runs a spending spree. He ain't never gonna set his descendants free. So there will be a revolution in this century. Anciently, he says in parentheses. Don't be shocked when your history book mentions me. I will lay down my life if it sets us free. Eventually, you'll see my ascendancy. And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. And I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. And I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot.
I dream of life without a monarchy. The unrest in France will lead to anarchy. Anarchy. I use they, I use all anarchy. When I type, I make the other side panicky with my
Yo, I'm a tailor's apprentice, and I got sharp knuckleheads and local parentis. I'm joining the rebellion, cause I know it's my chance to socially advance. Instead of sowing some bands that don't take shit. If I will never be truly free until those in bondage have the same rights as you and me. You and I do or die. Wait till I sally in on the stallion with the first black battalion. Never know. Geniuses, lower your voices. You keep out of trouble and you double your choices. I'm with you, but the situation is fraught. You got to be carefully taught. If you talk, you're gonna get shot. Bird, check what we got. Mr. Lafayette, hard rock like Lancelot. I think your pants look hot. Lawrence, I like you a lot. Let's hatch a plot blacker than the kettle calm in the pot. What are the odds that God will put us all in one spot? That's why conventional wisdom like it or not. A bunch of revolutionary man, you mission evolution. Give me a position, show me where the ammunition is. Oh, am I talking too loud? Sometimes I get overexcited, shoot off at the mouth. I never had a group of friends before. I promise that I'll make y'all proud. Let's get this guy in front of a crowd. Everybody Yeah. Let's go. When you're living on your knees, you rise up. Tell your brother that he's gotta rise up. Tell your sister that she's gotta rise up. When are these colonies gonna rise up? 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 I imagine that so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it coming, do I run or do I let it be? Is it like a beat without a melody? See, I never thought I'd live past 20. Where I come from, some get half as many. Ask anybody why we live it fast and we laugh, reach for a blast. We have to make this moment last. That's plenty. Scratch that. This is not a moment. It's the movement. We're all the hungriest brothers for something to prove. When foes oppose us, we take an honest stand. We roll like Moses, claiming our promised land. And if we win our independence, that a guaranteed freedom for our descendants. But when the blood is shed, begin an endless cycle of vengeance and death with no defendants. I know the action in the street is exciting, but Jesus puts me on the bleeding and fighting. I've been reading and writing. We need to handle our financial situation. Are we a nation of states? What's the state of our nation? I'm past patiently waiting. I'm passionate, smashing every expectation, every action, sacrification. I'm laughing in the face of casualties of sorrow. The next time I'm thinking past tomorrow. And I am not throwing my shot. I am not throwing my shot. I'm just like my country and young real. I'm not throwing my shot. You're right, so we time to shot. So we time to shot. Rise up, rise up, time to take a shot. Rise up, rise up, time to take a shot. Rise up, time to take a shot. Rise up, take a shot. Throwing away my shot. Hi, it's Sam Barker here.
I want to thank you for that, Jim. Right.
You're welcome. So we had a little bit of a problem because I started the share screen before Judy got into breakout group number 1, and somewhere or another Wanda, I think, has gone. Oh, no, she came back. All right. So let me just ask, as you listen to our reports, what struck you as similar to what Fareed has come up with?
I didn't get that question.
What did you hear in our reports that's similar to Fareed's lessons?
I think we're in a digital universe. I heard that in agreement with Fareed.
Is that Linda or John? That's what I want to know with that smart remark.
And I don't know.
Somebody else,
Okay.
Where did you hear similarity to Fareed's insights?
How our emphasis on governance, collaboration, not one world government, but that sense of how do we make decisions together.
I think he was very clear about the interdependence throughout his whole book, the connectedness, that it will be key to the future.
What was different? We've been talking, what did he leave out? What did he leave out? As you listen to our wisdom, what are some things that came up that are significantly different from Fareed? I kind of thought that a couple of people kind of had this thing about getting over a victim image and having the interior resources to function and operate. That seemed an area that he didn't really touch on.
I don't think that, I don't think he touched on really what I would call the cultural dimension.
The political and economic was really his focus.
Yep.
What it means to be a human being was not his focus. What it means to be a global citizen maybe was, but not the inclusiveness of what it means to be a human being. And the thing about the individual ism or the loneliness has to do with individualism rather than victimism. It has to do with egotism, you know, rather than actual caring for the whole world or for every other fellow human being. This didn't ring into the book. Maybe because it wouldn't have sold. I don't know the man.
I think similar to that, he seems to have an over-reliance on returning to the post-World War II paradigm that shows up in especially the ending chapters, and it just doesn't seem real. This is not the post-World War II world, and I don't think we're going to return to it.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention more and more through the book. I'm convinced what he's dealing with is what he calls the system he's dealing with in our social process we call common defense. And it had to do with the connections between intersocial bodies, alliances, and sovereign nations. And throughout, he's talking about political governmental leaders and what needs to happen there and so forth and so on. And his point seems to be that the international system we created after World War II is kind of what's still there and creaky. And it does seem to me like, well, I have two thoughts. One, what they were facing at the end of World War II is a lot different than what we're facing now. And so likely at the level of that international system, it'd be an interesting conversation of what are all the other efforts recreating that. But then secondly, that's at the fourth level of the social process, which means there's at least 27 other areas just from that model that are systems that are one way or another in place that somehow have to be recreated. I noticed a couple of insights about the family system, which in social process was procreative schemes, becoming a fundamental piece in a very different way than we'd begun to assume it. What are some, as you were listening to our insights and our lessons, what are some of the systems that we find ourselves concerned about describing and shaping and understanding and working within? Ronnie, unmute yourself.
He doesn't talk about, I mean, he still sees, he doesn't see us as a part of nature, and that our solutions to many of our problems have to do with seeing ourselves, seeing the role of humanity in a different way in a larger system.
Wow, that would be an amazing book to write. The post-pandemic world and how that's helping reshape in a practical social way those connections.
Thomas Berry.
Yeah, and then you see the prophets. Then all of a sudden you see all the prophets that are there. But Ellie, this is an area of view. How do you see coming out of the post-pandemic world maybe having different possibilities in terms of the relationship with nature and resources and stuff? Do you see any signs of that?
Well, I don't know if it's directly or indirectly, I think we're still stuck just on the pandemic part. We're not looking at the climate, which is the larger pandemic,
Right.
and how things really need, decisions and systems need to be based on the wisdom of Earth and Earth systems, organic systems. And like Barry said, you know, education or political or economic or whatever. And I think that's where the whole thing needs to be pushed. And the collaboration that was present after World War II, then it's that kind of collaboration needs to happen, but also needs to happen at the local movemental level. And those two integrated, the international and local, creating those systems based on Earth and being part, as Ronnie says, being part of Earth, not being separate from it.
Well, if I could just add on to that, my wife Joyce mentioned the book. Let's see, let me look in the chat here. It's Gates's book, Moment of Lift, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, which really takes on the environment and the economic. However, somebody used a key phrase tonight. It came out of the Cox group. There's Linda, and who's with Linda? Who's the young guy there?
John.
John.
Huh?
That's
John.
young John.
No.
Young John.
Yeah, right. Well, he's got a great toupee on that, or whatever you call it. But he used the phrase that really struck me, and that was that we may lack we have insufficient interior resources to deal with. We have the economic and the political. However, as we know, being part of the Spirit movement, that the decisions really, the in-depth decision making really comes out of our interior. And that's what we lack on a global scale, I think.
David Revstock has been pushing the notion that we need to describe the religious system, churches and religions and stuff like that, and how the pandemic has hit them, and what there might be in terms of a post-pandemic world. And I put an email out on that, and Martin had about 6 really quick insights from his perspective, both as a minister, and I guess he's been having to do double duty as a supply person for another congregation. But that would be an interesting exploration. Kyra Lingo Kyra Jewell sent me an article. It's time to pay attention to left-wing churches. In which she points out it's probably easier to distinguish churches and religious bodies these days by whether they're left-wing or right-wing than there is any sense of a deeper allegiance to God or doctrine or the creation of interior resources. It was very interesting to me. Anyway, somebody else. What other systems are we talking about?
I think Fareed's next book will probably be about how the global climate change interrelates with global pandemic. For instance, when we had the blizzard come through Texas, it's like it superseded everything else relative to COVID. Number one, you couldn't go anywhere and get anywhere. Just like Denver just had its record. I think Fareed's next book is going to be how the climate change interrelates with global catastrophes that force us to deal with our globality and how we care for each other.
Well, he points out in the way in the beginning that one feature of our international system is it's prone to crisis.
Yes.
And at least for my mind, I feel like we've become addicted to the drama of crisis. We're waiting for a crisis. We're describing everything as a crisis. Under the notion that the way to motivate people is to scare them about some urgent thing about to happen. But then that keeps us focused on one short-term thing after another. And then he points out, it's not making decisions. It's the political will to implement those decisions. And you think about the steps it's going to take to redo agriculture, even just in this country, is not going to happen in the next 10 minutes. And it's not going to be newsworthy. It's slow, slogging work, farm by farm at a time, bill by bill at a time, insight by insight at a time.
But
Yeah.
it's also in the crisis is where the local comes to be, where people care for each other and people begin to learn in the crisis how critical it is to have human community interrelate.
And I wanted to follow up on Gene's comment too.
Carlton and then Jan. Go
I
ahead.
think Louis, the spiritual dimension, I wanted to see a chapter on that. I don't know if he's the one to write it, but a chapter on that, because I think we as a spirit movement, the last half century or more, know some things or are aware of things about the spiritual dimension, the interior, and how to navigate that, because he kind of implies it, that is, buckle up, get ready. We're going to have another pandemic. This is going to go fast. So get ready. And he almost implies, get your spiritual life together, to put it in church language. Get your spiritual life together, because this is going to be a wild ride. So that's the way I look at it. And that's so important, that the spiritual dimension that we know something about. We don't know it all, but we know something about it.
David Fleming's book connects the cultural, the climate, the religious, the economic. Last plug.
It's a good one. And I'm going to do my play, which is
Well,
the spiritual.
Is there anybody? Oh, go ahead, Dan.
The spiritual and the religious systems are both within our understanding of the cultural processes. And I think we need to pull together our understanding of the last 50 years. How did we do culture? What have we learned about cultural change in the last 30 years? We've all been out. I think about what the world what mystery has done to us. It's spread us out all over a fair amount of North America and other parts of the world, that we're in position to be local people who could make a difference in the local situation, with skills, with talents, with the news story, the spirituality. And I think we're called on to do that. And I have remember the Long March of Care, 1972? I don't know how many signed up. I signed up for 20 years. And the other night I thought, well, it's time to think about another. And I came up with the long dance of creativity that I was going to sign up for.
We're running on in time, and I see that our listeners have returned. Are you all ready to report?
Yes.
One more thing no one's really mentioned directly, but there used to be an old image, this was in the 50s and the 60s really, of servant leadership. And, you might look, if you want to relate it to the, to what nature, you might say, has taught us, but there is an invisible leadership. And we as a group of human beings know a lot about that invisible leadership. We were it in many situations. And not only that, we recognized other, quote, servant leaders, not the ones that have all the big names, all the big recognition, but those invisible servant leaders are those that I would like to work with the rest of my life with, because they're going to be the key.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Larry and Judy.
Okay, Judy, do you have a voice?
Okay, so we came up with a list of 9 learnings. And we're going to read those out to you, and then there's space if we want to add 1 or 2 more that we can add if you see things that are important that we have missed. So the first one is in the area of governance, that there's a tension between global and local or regional planning and implementation, but that both are very important. And that dialogue and deliberation must go on at both of these, at all of these levels.
Number 2, digital programs increase participation and access. AI impact is accelerating this, but education and interaction have exploded.
Number 3, we live in an interconnected world that the environment, social justice, and all of the other issues, health issues, and other economic issues that are arising at this moment are all interconnected, that we can't solve any of them by just focusing in one of these arenas to the exclusion of the others.
Empowering the disadvantaged. Digital, financial, and interior resources. The divide impacts everybody and all suffer. So closing the gaps, essential workers, ethnic, financial, et cetera, helps all.
Number 5 was the primacy of the local and the family, and grounding in those, being rooted in those when we're struggling, that's where our protection is, and that's where we find refuge when things get tough.
Number 6, the need for universal health, able to plan and coordinate response, stockpiles, et cetera. Shifting the understanding of connectivity to be health, not just economic distribution perspective.
Number 7, that we have a chance, as Fareed says, to create a new and different world, that the status quo is being challenged and will fight back. And that especially the vested interests, but that we have already irrevocably, some things have already been changed and will never be the way they were.
Number 8, where the lockdown world, solitude and loneliness, the psychological aspects, the healing dimension, how it has worked on self-concept and connections.
And number 9, that the cultural and religious revolution is exposed and accelerated by the pandemic.
Let's give them a hand.
Hey.
So I guess any questions that you have or brief additions?
Yeah, can you give a couple examples of, in number 9, of a cultural and religious revolution?
Can we refer that to the group that, I think there was one group that specifically used this language. Hi, Doug.
Well, I guess what I was, I think that was the one that I talked about, but yeah, that was CS1 and RS1 were sort of like the introductory courses into that. And the whole conversation around the, what we're seeing played out really is that cultural and religious revolution. That's for me is the main undercurrent that's been exposed by the pandemic. I see it every day when I watch the news, and I'm particularly disturbed about some of the more toxic religious fundamentalism that is there, but also
enlivened by the new stance of people. So I don't know, it just, those, I think those are prominently there as part of the undercurrent.
Thank you.
Any other questions or additions?
Why I brought up that idea of religion coming together to Jim as we talked, and I thought about it, is that it seems like the religions don't talk to each other in terms of what their similarities are. They're always talking about differences and negative differences. And when you bring the religions together and ask them questions like, how do you feel about caring for the poor? How do you feel about universal, unconditional love? How do you feel about violence versus nonviolence? You
How do you
find
feel
that,
about murdering babies?
yes, but you know, that's what I'm saying is that there's a lot of similarities that provide a basis for talking about getting yourself to talk about murdering babies. But if you start out with the negative, you don't get anywhere. You've got to start out with the similarities and go from there.
Several people have had to leave. We're running a little over. Do we have permission to go say another 10 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that in at least my experiences here in the Cincinnati area are that the various faith communities are coming together in a couple of places. One of them relative to going green, finding ways, and that's something that is pulling people together, as well as our Metropolitan Area Religious Coalition, and they're focusing on things like rights for immigrants and affordable housing. So they're coming together and working together on things they can agree on. I'm complete.
Oh, I want to go ahead, Jan, and then I want to step back. Go ahead, Jan.
Oh, well, I've been in this last dialogue we had, there was quite an emphasis on the environment, and there's some here, but I don't know if it quite reflected our sense of urgency.
Yeah.
I wrote down the next larger pandemic will be the climate change or earth crisis, but I wonder if we need to put something stronger in like that.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask this question. As you look over this list, which of these have the most practical relevance in your life? Yeah, I mean, I think if you think of Fareed's book, like I'd really like it if Biden and McConnell and that bunch of people all read it, because it seems like there'd be a real lot of relevance in what they ought to be doing. But which of these 10 that we came up with for you have the most practical relevance in terms of your situation? Anybody? Somebody who hadn't spoken yet.
I would like to echo Jan's comment about the urgency of the climate environment and climate crisis.
Yep, I'm on board with 10.
Okay, somebody else. as we move into this post-pandemic world, what is there to celebrate?
We are coming to the post.
We're alive.
Lots of vaccines people are sharing now.
I think the awareness that we are all experiencing similar aspects when the disasters comes. There's very few of us who haven't experienced some kind of major disaster crisis in the last 2 or 3 years, one way or another. And the fundamental change that happens to people that calls to awareness of the whole crisis of our times, I think is becoming very clear, but individual by individual and community by community. You can't escape it.
I think the thing that I want to celebrate is just simply the chance to intentionalize the crisis individual by individual, in a sense that we're faced with now some very stark personal choices, at least in my life, where I have high risk to the COVID. I've had to make sure that I just don't go out without a mask. I must exercise care all the time. But I also know that when I come up against other individuals and groups and institutions that are similarly trying to protect others like me or are themselves at risk, like healthcare workers, I sense that, it doesn't leave me a responsibility to sometimes challenge some of the crazy rules I end up, having to, manage on the part of healthcare organizations. Yes, they're designed in some cases to help me, but in some cases they're just making my life miserable. And I find that every decision then is, what is the risk? What are you going to do to manage it? What are you going to do to say, this may be my fate, but I choose to make it my destiny?
Larry, maybe stop sharing your screen so we can see each other.
One thing,
back in our first session, we made a list of what are the big questions we're really asking as we're doing this study. And one of those questions was, what is the role of 4th, 5th, and 6th lifetimers like us in this? Kind of came to mind with Tom's comment. We're in our 70s and 80s, I believe. I think John left, so he doesn't count. So what is a post-pandemic world holding for us? What's our wisdom? What's our role? What's our contribution? I mean, we all had our Superman suits on at some point.
Mine's hanging in the closet.
Go ahead, Carl.
I was saying my Superman outfit's in the closet. It's hanging in the closet, but yeah, I think it's something to do with reminding folks of what the human values are. What are the things that we have to? I think that the wisdom of the elderly we used to talk about. The 4th lifetime. What are the best values that we need to hold to and keep to in these times? That would be one for me.
Okay.
The way that technology creates community among solitary people or people who find themselves isolated from what they knew in the past. And I'm complete.
well, I'd like to say, I'm Louis Pierce, I'd like to say, as one of the more elders, I'm going to be 84 in a couple of months.
Me too.
And I've still got a fire in my belly like you would never believe. And I'm still an oral surgeon, still practicing in this world and in the rural of Ghana, Africa. And there was one of the looks, or not one of the looks, one of the Coxes, the fellow that was with Linda. Was that their son?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
He's
Yes.
gone. Hi,
Yeah.
Linda.
Yeah.
And he used this phrase that there's insufficient interior resources to deal with many of the challenges. And we know what that is about. And I can do it at 84, I can do it at 104.
Yeah.
You just never seem to run out of the fire in your belly. And so there you go, gang. Have a glass of wine and go like a bandit.
Sherwood?
I think too, the fact that we are global, one of
Yeah.
the reasons that keeps me coming to this, I'm on several book clubs that are intentional book clubs who study intentional stuff, but coming together globally, shared community. And I hear more and more people talk about this, that they're now able to connect with their family, their friends, and be serious in that. So I'm just delighted that we have the global connection. And that just, for me, is phenomenal.
I hope this conversation continues in many ways and in many venues. But I'm going to call this little part to a hold. Remember to fill out the SurveyMonkey survey. I'll send the link out again. We're going to close that on Thursday. So if you want to get your 2 cents in about this and about recommendations for the future, do that then. Any other announcements we need? Good. Special thanks to David Rebstock, who's been the anchor of these kind of study groups for 10 years or more now, to just, keep it going, keep the Zoom going.
Hey, David.
High thanks to everybody who stepped up to be a chapter host. It was just such a treat to see that going on. And you can't really say this, but thanks to each and every one of you for just for who you are and what you do, and for being willing to join up with us these 12 weeks. And I'm going to turn it over to David, and he's going to send us out.
Can we say happy 50th anniversary to you also, to giving your time to this tonight? Happy anniversary to you.
And for
Since when we asked, this one we asked the
James
question.
James Weigel, yes and no and no and yes.
There you go. That was the question.
Judy?
About Judith.
Before I send you out, I just want to say that although when we did the last book study that Jim was involved with me, we asked what book should we do next, and I suggested this book. But this series that we've just gone through would just not have been possible without the hard work that Jim and Judy put into it. I really want to give a big hand of applause for that. And so
Judy,
I send you all out to continue in the not yet to be. That's with a capital B and a capital E. And to use the wisdom and the lessons learned from the pandemic and from this study into your communities in the future. So be it.
So,
Amen.
so,
Be it
be it
so.
so.
Good to be with you all.
Good to be with you all.
Thank you,
You
everybody.
Yes.
See you soon, I'm sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Keep up
Take
the
care,
good
Drucker
work.
Millers and Rep Stocks. We're coming your way
Get back.
this spring. And I've got the wine. Look
We'll
at
be
Doug.
there.
Look at
Thank
Doug.
you. Bye.
Maybe
Bye-bye.
coming through St. Louis, come see us.
He's a
Wow.
happy
Yes.
camper.
Stay in the
Once the-
revolution. Stay in the revolution.
Once the border
And Paul.
opens, you
Hey,
can come
Paul.
to Canada.
See you,
Bye-bye.
Fred.
Yeah, when is the border gonna open anyway?
July the 5th.
July the 5th, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
good.
little
Yeah.
hunk of Minnesota sticking up
All
to the
right.
north has been really isolated.
Hey, thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank
See you,
you.
at the
Larry.
next, see you at the next
For
one.
the- for-
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Inshallah. Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care of
South of
Asia
China.
for us.
South of China.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
See
Bye.
you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
It was a good evening, Jim.
Yeah, we panicked because we couldn't figure out how to do anything with that mural wall. I mean, it's good and you can do it, but we're not trained. And then I don't know how we came up with this Google Doc thing, but right away,
But this Google Docs thing worked pretty good though, didn't it?
yeah. And right away, Larry and Eunice, they stepped right up with suggestions about how to do it and confidence and stuff like that. It was just, the resource supporting this was quite amazing to me.
How did you set them up? Well, I don't need to go into that now, but it was.
It was great. Yeah, I mean, the visual element, I think worked. Did this, I jumped around in the small groups. They seemed like they were productive and moved ahead on things. Did you all think?
I made my list ahead of time and I had too many, but.
Yeah, I made my list and then as it turned out, I never did get into a group to share any of them, but they got covered some way or another.
Yeah.
So my question, I'll send out another link to that survey to see if anybody that hasn't responded to that yet. So far, we've had 12 responses.
I sent mine in this afternoon, but I didn't spend an awful lot of time on it.
And then I'll put a link to a report. I'll figure out a way to share this Google Doc. And as soon as I have chance, I'll take this recording and edit it down so people have those clips. And then I was thinking we could put everything on the mural wall and freeze that, and then send a visitor link to Karen, and she could put that on the global schedule. So if people wanted to wander around and see what we came up with, they could do that. I think that'd be fine. What's your thinking about a next steps with all this, David?
Yeah. I'm sure not up to leading another one, but I sure would like to join another book study.
This kind of excites me, though. I really would like to just participate. I got back into my old facilitator mode, asking questions and not being upfront with my own answers. I'd like to get away from that. So maybe we suggest a Zoom meeting. Well, maybe we let and see what bubbles up, or we could suggest a a Zoom meeting next Monday or the Monday after for people who want to help organize a next study. Something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Do you want to put out a notice to that effect, and then I'll set up the meeting?
All right. Judy, you have anything?
What about all those different books and things people were mentioning? Are those somehow,
If you got a list of those, were those documented?
A few of them are in the chat. And I have them down. The ones I know Jack Gillis is suggesting a book also. And there was a question in the survey that was kind of hinting at that.
Early on, Wanda Holcomb had suggested a book the first or second week, and I didn't get it down. I asked her for it tonight, but
it's
I was
called
too busy.
Humankind by Brad Aronson.
Human what?
Kind. Humankind
Humankind.
by Brad Aronson.
Aronson?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I wondered, if there's a number of books that people suggest they would like to study, I would suggest that maybe there could be several book groups going simultaneously, and that maybe on an assigned date, then everybody could come back together and share out what they learned in their book.
I think for the 10 lessons, the New York Times put that review out, and that's what kind of catalyzed us to do this book. And maybe that would be a good idea for these others to just take 3 or 4 or 5 books and send out reviews, find reviews for those books, and then send them out to everybody.
Yeah, or a little descriptive paragraph.
Yeah, a little
It could
descriptive.
take, several books around a common theme. And it's an interesting thing to do, to either read, or you could study together chapter by chapter, or read the book and then come together and talk about, share insights from that book. And then they could be shared with a bigger group. I've done this with school kids where everybody reads a different article on a common subject, and then each group shares what they learned. And so you get from different sources, you get ideas and put them together. Anyway, that's just another suggestion. In some ways, I think a study group of 3 to 5 or 7 people could be quite a different experience than a big group, coming back and forth together.
Yeah.
But if you had several small groups and then they came together at some point, I don't know, just an idea. Another way to go about that.
We should.
The one thing that I find interesting in this book, and in tonight's, there was one point in the list that was everything has changed. Something to the effect is everything's changed, and we can't go back. We can only go forward. And it strikes me that when I watch the news, there was an article in the New York Times on Sunday about how Biden has changed. He's not doing press conferences. And the reason I think he's not doing press conferences is that the news media always tries to ask questions that are gotchas. They try to make him stumble, or they try to accentuate the negative rather than the positive. And when he makes a speech, he's always accentuate how good things are going and where we need to do better, but not and to communicate it. And it's in other words, the style has changed, even in Washington. Although it hasn't changed for some of the media, but it has for quite a few people. It's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be interesting in 6 months to have a discussion with this group of people and say, well, how much else has changed? Or a year. How have we changed for the better? Or how have we slipped back into the old normal? But I would like to pick a book or some books that would have that kind of a focus, that would talk about change, positive change.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about killing babies.
Well, yeah, but we've got to figure out a way to I mean, we got to figure out how to have that large dialogue. I was thinking to go and have some dinner right now. Thanks much to you, David. This has been great. I'll get this stuff done up. I got some notes on our suggestions. And once we get the suggestions out of the survey, then I guess it'd be a matter of seeing if there are some people who'd like to create something. Probably need to bring Karen into the conversation, because she's been instigating all these events on that event calendar. And I know they either did one or they're going to do one on Jim Addington's book. That was more done like a 2.5 or 3 hour webinar, and Jim Troxell's. So I think we should find a way to integrate that, as well as to honor the fellowship that we started creating with this group of 25 people.
Uh-huh.
All right. Anything else, David? Otherwise, I'm going to go.
Okay. Well, you put out a notice, or if you could send me the names of the books that were suggested, I'd appreciate it. Okay. I'll look in the chat, but.
All right, I'll do that now.
Humankind, and what's the author on that one?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
You want it in the chat now, or should I send an email? Or should I put it on the Google Doc, or should I put it on the mural wall?
I definitely won't find it if it's on the mural wall, because I just don't know how to get on the mural wall. The current version of the mural wall. If you're going to put something on the mural wall, you better send me a link to it.
No, I'll send an email to you.
Okay.
Oh, God, I
I've
just got,
got,
I
I've
just got
got
a
to,
message from Jack Gillis. I think he never got let in.
I've got to get my tax return done, I'll tell you that.
That's the
I
other
have-
thing we did to celebrate our anniversary. We got
Yeah,
our taxes done, sent in.
okay.
Take care.
Well, thanks
David.
again for everything.
Yep, you too.
It's really been great. Ellen saw a doctor today and she was too tired to come on tonight. And I've got to see a doctor sometime this week.
All right, we'll see you.